Today, I rode a nearly empty train to a tucked away hidden town in southern Japan. Uki has really low tourist numbers, but is home to absolutely stunning beauty. Today, I went to two districts, Sumiyoshi and Misumi. The journey started at 5 a.m. when I walked the 1 hour from my house to Kumamoto Station. Now, why, you may ask? Though I live practically downtown, Kumamoto Station is weirdly far away from downtown Kumamoto, and honestly, getting there is kind of a pain. I wanted to go as soon as I could in the morning, to go to the famous Tidal Road and maybe even catch the sunrise. The station was dark and cold, and there was honestly no one there. I also messed up and accidentally bought a round-trip ticket when I really did not need one. As I waited for the train to come, I had Kumon to keep me company. The train was honestly pretty nice, better than some commuter trains in Kumamoto. It had seats that actually let me look out the window, which is always a plus. You can't use IC cards on the train, and you need to buy tickets on board or at the station using a vending machine. And of course, it's cash only. The Misumi line, the train line I'm riding today, operates at a loss and only has 260 or so daily riders. There definitely weren't any crowds to get on the train, to say the least. I got off the train at Sumiyoshi Station, and it was definitely a brisk morning, to say the least. Temperatures hovered at around 2 degrees, and the ocean wind certainly was not helping my case. I braved the cold, only to find out that when I got to the aforementioned scenic Tidal Road, I had fucked up. The tide was still out, rendering the picturesque road nothing more than a boring, normal road. In fact, there were still fishermen driving on it, using it for its intended purpose. Someone online told me that the best time to go was 2 hours after high or low tide. And well, low tide was at 5 a.m. that day, and I got there at 7, but the tide was not ideal. Unbothered, I made a brief detour to a local shrine. If you know me, you know I'm absolutely mad about history, especially religious history. This shrine, and the rocky island around it, were mentioned in Sei Shonagon's Pillow Book. Sei Shonagon being the oldest recorded female Japanese writer. She is the sole reason we know almost anything about medieval society from 1,000 years ago, and she's honestly an inspiration of mine. She meticulously detailed everything in her life, from the exciting to the mundane, and she's the type of person that I want to be. A lot of people assume Sumiyoshi shrines are just normal maritime shrines, but the truth is that they originated from a purification ritual after a god of death escaped the land. That connection to death, water, and liminal spaces is why so many coastal Sumiyoshi shrines have an oddly mysterious vibe. The shrines themselves are ancient, and there's over 2,000 of them, all dedicated to the three gods of the sea. Sumiyoshi shrines, architecturally speaking, use a very archaic form of carpentry called Sumiyoshi zukuri. This style involves straight edges, minimal decoration, and perfect symmetry. They definitely have an archaic feel compared to other shrines. Upon entering the shrine, I received a goshuin, and then was lucky enough to be given a tour by the shrine priest, who was incredibly enthusiastic about showing me around. He told me the history of an ancient lighthouse, or at least its modern recreation, and a British seaweed scientist who has their remains interred here. After a brief rest, I returned to the Tidal Road, only to find it very much still not flooded. I walked down to the end and then was promptly blindsided by the tide rushing in. I don't think I expected the tide to move as fast as it did, but you could literally see it on video. As I set my camera down to get the perfect flooded road shot, my boots and tripod were both soaked in salt water. I probably wasn't the only one trapped by the tide. The Ariake Sea, where I filmed this, has Japan's largest tidal range, meaning the water can retreat several kilometers, leaving behind massive stretches of mud. Fishermen around the tidal flats have long told stories about voices calling from the empty mud at low tide. According to older accounts, when the tide goes out at night, the flats become completely silent. Sometimes people hear someone calling their name from far out in the mud. When they walk towards the voice, it seems to move farther away. You see, if you follow the voice, the tide comes back before you realize it. Many locals say the voices are spirits of people who drowned after being trapped by the incoming tide. You see, the Ariake mud is famous for being unusually deep and soft. There are actual historical records of people and animals sinking waist deep or worse in the tidal flats. In local legends, the mud is seen as being alive. One local saying in Kumamoto villages was essentially, the mud remembers, meaning that places where someone died were believed to pull the next person down faster. Some fishermen refused to walk across certain areas of mud at night because they believed the spirits of the drowned held on to travelers' legs. Luckily, my camera did not suffer any damage. I walked back to the train station and was then surprised to see a sign evangelizing on the way back. I knew that Christianity was pretty popular in the neighboring Amakusa Islands, but I didn't realize you could see it here too, as it's pretty rare in Japan. This wooden train station has a cafe in it, but it was closed when I went. However, I'll definitely be going in a future video. There were a lot of stations that stopped in the middle of nowhere, and there was probably less than 3 people on the entire train at times. I got off at the final stop on the line, Misumi. I checked out their Junji Ito-esque ferry port and ate some absolutely delectable daifuku. You can see a lot of the inland islands from the top. However, the sun was a bit too unbearably bright for my poor board camera. Then, I went and climbed a hill and tried something new, taichazuke. I'm a fan of both ochazuke and sashimi, and this combined both to make something really, really delicious. It was a bit pricey, but if you're in the area, I'd recommend it. Then, I passed through a small fishing village on my way to Misumi Westport. The water was crystal clear and some of the most vibrant blue I've ever seen in my life. The flowers had just started to bloom, and it was genuinely stunning. I ran into several locals, many of whom were fishing. I had a lovely conversation with the local grandpa, who then led me to the local shrine. It was utterly serene, tucked away on a cliff overlooking the bay. Densely covered in foliage, it really felt almost otherworldly. I kept walking along the busy highway until I finally reached Misumi Westport. It's a World Heritage Site. It was built in the 1800s and was key to the Industrial Revolution in Japan. It has many old buildings, many of which have been converted into cafes or museums. They were cool, but frankly, I wish they had a few more exhibits inside. Some of the buildings, like this traditional Japanese storehouse, were entirely empty, save for a bloody handprint. There was also an old courthouse used to film a movie, and it was definitely a really cool atmosphere. There were like 2 other tourists I saw all day besides me, and it goes to show you that if you have the initiative to explore lesser known areas, you will practically have the place to yourself. I hiked up to the top of the mountain beside the courthouse, taking in the sights before I headed home. The sun was almost at its peak by this point, and though the sun was bright, my camera somehow managed to cooperate. I strolled next to the water for ages, taking in views of the famous bridge to Amakusa, as well as the crystal clear water. Eventually, I found some seagulls, which I happily added to my collection. By this point, I had walked over 40,000 steps, and I was sufficiently tired enough for the day, so I decided to go back home. Turns out that I couldn't convert the round-trip ticket that I actually bought earlier, so I had to eat the cost, but oh well. If you ever have time, please check out Uki. See y'all next week!